Hello guys and welcome back to this video. As I said in the previous video, I hope you watched it. Um, we are going to talk about how to validate forms with PHP. Form validation is the subject. I want to say as the first thing that this is not the form we're going to see now. We are going to see another form. This is the most beautiful one, okay? And there are two main possibility to validate a form. One is to use the regular expressions, and the second is to use a function which is called filter underscore var. Okay, so this is the form that I have. I can even open it here. Uh, but actually it doesn't work really well because I just created myself in a second. And the form is sending to tut.php, which where there are this functionality. Okay, anyway, let's first see how to validate forms and the different ways to validate maybe the name, maybe the email, the phone number. Okay, in tut.php we have the logic. As you see here, what do we have? We have a name, surname, email, phone number, and IP address. First of all, we are using regex in here, and we are dealing with the name. So first logic, we have an if condition, if else condition to see if the name exists or they left the page, the field blank, no? So if it's saying if empty get name, it send to the screen this message, this error message. Otherwise, it equals name to get name, to the variable name. It's settling a variable. Then it's actually checking the variable with preg match. We already saw this preg match and the regular expression. Actually is using the opposite. It's negating the preg match, but it's the same thing in a way. So preg match, if there are only if it finds special characters, white spaces, or numbers, it sends an error. And then then it sends echo name. I think this is more or less clear since now. Okay, what I wanted to say before moving on is that this form doesn't work. It doesn't work. It works because it is actually validating. It says something, but if I press submit, it's saying email not valid, and is writing Paolo, so it's working, but it has already sent me to the page. We want to validate the form, and if there is something wrong, the user must not be sent to the page. We will see how to do it. Right now, I just put the logic in another page to be more simple. Okay. Anyway, second logic with regular expression. We have an email get email pattern. Of course, I printed out this pattern, but it's pretty long. If preg match email is not valid, otherwise the email is valid. You can find this on internet and copy and paste. So there is not really need to explain it extensively, or you will never face the possibility to write an irregular expression to validate an email yourself. Okay. Last here we have mobile phone number. In this case, we want to see if the digits are 10, are exactly 10. So we are using the string length property. We are taking the length of the digit that has been inserted, and then if the length is minor to or major than 10, we send an error. Otherwise, your phone number is both. It's quite long. Using regular expression can bring you everywhere, in the sense that you can do everything with a regular expression, but it occupies a lot of line of code, as you can see. Here is the same thing, but using filter.var. It should be here. It should be here. Yes, we are using filter.var in this case, but we are validating exactly the same way. So we have the first, for example, this first logic to see if the name was empty, there is no possibility to use filter underscore var. We are using a regular expression, and same for name. I didn't find it. Maybe there is. I'm not sure, but I didn't find it, so it's not easy. It's much easier to use to validate a name. It's much easier to use a regular expression in this case. Notice this different is for email, which actually has a built-in possibility. As you can see here, we have email, get email, and then if filter var, filter var is a function that accepts 2 or 3 parameters, first of all. So we have filter validate email, filter validate. Now let's grab the schema. Okay, see, as you see here, there are different kinds of filter validate possibilities that can cover many things. Not everything, but as you see, there is even filter MAC address. I don't think you would use a regular expression to validate a MAC address where we have this filter validate. Okay. Anyway, it has, as I said, it accepts 3 parameters: the input, the dollar email, the filter validate email, so the actually function you're going to perform, so to say. And further, there is a possibility, there is something that you might use that I'm not going to explain. They call it flags, and they exist, in some cases they exist. So just to come back here, no, I took the wrong place. As you see here, it says there are flags. This part, there are flags. So if I cannot explain this to you, it's no sense. You should go and look at the documentation, because it's much simpler than talking about stuff and stuff. But they exist. In case of the email, we don't need it. Anyway, filter.var, it filtering an email with this built-in function. You can equal to true, as you can, and you can even not. Actually, it's actually the same, because if you write filter var blah 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 blah, it is already equaling it to true. But you can even just write it is the same thing. Anyway, echo valid email, echo email is not valid. Okay. Then we have the phone number, as I did before, which with the regular expression was working well, and even here it works quite well, I think. We have int, string length, we have 3 parameters: integer, min and max. Min and max because they are used inside filter validate integer. We get the length of the input. If filter var, integer, filter validate integer, and here we are using a flag. I think is one of the flags, or at least a third parameters. I don't want to say something absurd. Anyway, if options array, min range, and max range, you should know something about array and associative array to understand this. I hope you do. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Maybe you can go and search it. Now it's not the time to talk about this in particular. Anyway, we are equaling this to false. So if this is false, if it's not in range of 10 and 10, so if it's not equal to 10, it's saying it's not in the legal range. In case it's true, so in the other possibility, we have your phone number, get phone number is within the legal range. Boom. Finish the phone number. Last is the IP address, which I didn't put in tut in the other one, tut.php. There isn't. just because and I'm not saying that it's impossible. Probably you can find a regular expression that validates IP addresses, but as you can understand, there is something wrong in your way of thinking, no? Because there is filter validate IP, you filter validate IP. It's not that there are vulnerabilities to filter validate IP. I want to be clear about this. This built-in function don't have vulnerabilities, or maybe at least I don't think so. I'm not really an information security expert. Maybe at a really advanced level, at an enterprise production, there is something, but basically they are not vulnerable to anything unless you are using it wrong. But if you put filter validate IP here, as I'm doing, everything is fine. Or it's a real IP, or it doesn't go. Also because so to say is like this, no? So there is not that we are doing something as a beginner phase way. What we are doing, if you do it well, it works perfectly. Okay. So we saw these two ways to validate your forms. Now I want to return back to the first form that you saw. That is the one that is good. That is underscore second form.php. That is this one. So I want to show you some things inside here. We read the code together very fast. First, we are sectoring errors, and this is not important. You will understand it as we move up, down. The first one is this: if server request method equal to post. First, server underscore dollar underscore server is a global variable. We have global variables. And as it says here, it's an array containing information such as headers, path, and script location. It's very important because this can show to you or to hackers everything of your page, which is the database, which is the header of the communication, where are you in the path, everything is written inside server in this dollar in server global variable. Of course, we won't talk about it, and there are a lot of methods. One of them is a request method, and so this is saying um, if uh, if the method is post, use this post, you move on. Otherwise, it's over. If you are using get, it's over. Anyway, so to make understand the first line of code, then there is the normal validation. Normal validation here, but they created um, a function, a customized function, which we will see. And then it moves on. It's using a post method, as you see. Here we have name errors that we have settled to empty string at the beginning. And then as we move on, in case maybe the match doesn't match, it's changing the name error to something. But this is not important. It's just for the UI. It's not that it's really important to make you inside the logic of the backend. Okay, it's using filter var, as you see. Somewhere is using filter var. Here it's using a regular expression. So to as you see, both are valid options. And here we have the test input, the customized function. We are taking the data as parameters. We are we are trimming the data, so they remove the white spaces at the beginning or at the end. Function that we already saw, I think, and that is not really important. Then we have strip slashes and HTML special characters. We are going to see this functionality, which are the one or two of the important functionality we have to cover. Definitely HTML special characters. Anyway, here we are filtering for possible attacks from the users, and then they return data. Okay. Then last here, um, we have the form, and I want to highlight this. We have form method post, and I want to give your attention to the action, which is echo HTML special cars dot server PHP self. Here first, to HTML special cars is it strips and removes, or anyway it filters for HTML characters that are relevant for HTML, and we will see why. But here it could even be like this. As you see, it is not throwing an error. It's just an addition. We are echoing to .server PHP self. So we are not echoing anymore to another page. We are echoing to the same page that we are into now. So the what we are going to write into the form is not going anywhere. Is going inside the same page. Okay, and then here there is all the input, and finally the output. Okay, so now let's I want to talk about HTML special cars, etc. So since now probably all that I said seems to be a little confusing and probably a little useless, this example will make you understand everything that we are doing. So here we have a form with just one input, and there is no security on ren.php. As you can see here, ren.php just echo back what receives. So let's move to the form. Here we have the form. We could submit an empty form, and as you see, nothing stops us. Okay, now I return back. Since nothing prevents us anything, so you can write anything here because there is nothing that filters. There is nothing that prevents us to send something like this. Okay, wait. These are tags. We write h1 under slash h1. If I submit, as you see now, is an h1. You see the difference. I hope you see the difference. If I would do the opposite, come here and write hello world, is a normal tag. It has took the h1 as part of my code, of the code of the developer, not as the user input. This is very dangerous because people now, for example, another example is script. The first one was HTML. Now we are using JavaScript. Alert hello. Now we are using JavaScript, but the concept is the same. Okay. And as you can see here, we have an input, a box that is saying hello. Not, that is saying hello. This is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning of all the things that hackers can do from a web application penetration. So they exist these kind of features that we have saw. In order to prevent this, we can we have saw here, we saw HTML special characters. Okay, we come here. If we use HTML special characters, okay, save the page, and we try to do the same trick. Okay, then if we send this here, as you can see, the characters are displayed inside our code, so is now interpreted as code. And so our field input box, so the database, because where we are going to send our our piece of inputs are to the database, which if is vulnerable to executing code that the user wants, then it's a problem. Okay, very simple. Okay, so second operation, or second function we can use is HTML entities, which as far as I want to explain is exactly the same as HTML special cars, but there are some different with the flex that you can use. If you go into the manual, um, wait, here, here we have HTML special cars, and there are HTML entities. You will discover that what I'm saying is just part of a more complicated things. And it's obviously like this. I cannot speak of information security in a PHP course and talk 3 hours. Okay, this is the manual for PHP HTML special cars. It has a flags that has that make things different. HTML entities, it's even the guide says is identical to HTML special cars, except that blah blah blah. Let's take that they are identical. As you can see here, now I've wrote HTML entities. HTML entities we are doing, yes, and I saved. If I come here and I write this and then I submit, as with HTML special cars, the tags remains inside the text and they don't get absorbed into the code. Okay. Another thing, sorry, another thing that we can do here that is different from HTML and HTML special cars is strip tags. Strip tags is different from the others. We will see it soon because it actually removes the strings, the strips. So now I saved. We go back into our form here. I hope it works because maybe, okay, let's see that now we have a hello world. There are no the tags, but the hello world didn't become bold and bigger because of the H1. The H1 has been recognized as special cars and removed. This is the difference between HTML entities and strip tags. So this was it for strip tags and for what is called XSS script, insomma HTML injection or JavaScript injection, because it's the same. I think it's the same, at least at a beginner level, as I also am, because I'm not an information security expert. I know these things, I don't know everything. They are the same. JavaScript injection and HTML injection, let's call it. Now there is another thing that is hard to explain because you need a database. Anyway, is what is called the SQL injection. Here we have our form that is bringing us here. Okay, okay. Okay, wait a second. Okay, yes. So we are using this form that is the same as before, the first form, but I actually saved in another folder, in another file, and is referring to this not.denet.php, which there is a function which we will see. Now I want you to get a little imagination because I couldn't have a database to really show you this. So probably there are better tutorials for this. I'll be quick. Um, imagine that we have this name field, and imagine that I'm writing a password, okay? A password can be right or wrong, and if I write a password that is wrong, the the database returns us an answer. No, your password is wrong. Then I cannot let you in, or your password is right. This is the functionality of the databases, and in this point we are talking about SQL, which we didn't cover, but it has its is a programming language and has its logic, as we already know from everywhere. When you write a sentence that is true, a sentence that is true is one is equal to one. This is a true sentence, no? Um, so if we could inside a password, and this is not a password, but we can inject an SQL sentence. For example, we write Paolo, but then we place our double quotes because so that the browser recognized that this string that we are sending is finished because there is a double quotes, no? Okay, the string is finished. Now there is my code, and it's saying or 1 equal to 1, okay, um, which is a SQL logic, and then it comments out. This is just to make you understand what it can do. And so it will say, okay, the password, the interpreter would say, okay, the password is wrong, but it's telling me that also I have to let him in if 1 is equal to 1. 1 is equal to 1, and so it's true, and so I let him in. This is a possibility that hackers use, but we don't really care about this. We care about the quotes, because the problem here is that the quotes are recognized as code. This is the real problem. Right now, if I submit this, as you can see, the quotes has been escaped with a backslash. And this is what I wrote here. Now let's just see the code. And if you are interested, you can find it's called SQL injection. You can find some other videos, probably from me. Right now I didn't post anything, but maybe I will in the future. Um, and here, this is the function that I'm using, is a filter sanitize, which is actually not as filter validate. There are even filter sanitize, but this is the only one that I'm using. So I get name, then I equal the name to filter validate, filter underscore var, filter sanitize add slashes, and we are adding slashes to the code of the users in case there are double quotes or single quotes, same. We add slashes so they don't get recognized by our interpreter as our code, and so cause troubles. That's it. And this brings us, if you remember, to um, one function that we overtake. I just didn't talk about it here in this text.input, which is strips slashes, which does the opposite thing. It actually, once it has added the slashes, and so the database is clean, is not corrupted, but is confusing because there are those slashes. Strip slashes would remove the slashes again. So then after strip slashes, the database is clean and ordered. Really last tip, really last subject of this video, then it's over. I want I will just use the reference, the manual. As you can see here with the filters, we have filter validate, and we saw this. Filter, we are on filter underscore var features. Filter validate. We just saw now filter sanitize, and there are many things on filter sanitize, but not so many that you can think of, because many things are already done with HTML special cars. And last, this I suggest you to have a look at if you want. Last that I want to say is that exists a filter callback, um, A callback function is a function that is calling a function. A function that is called inside a function, I don't remember. Anyway, is actually a customized filter. So you are you use a function that you want. Let's see without being. Let's see this function. Function trim, very simple. Now you're just applying trim to the function, and here filter underscore input, not var, where it exists, but it uses the same arguments here. Input post, the input filter back, call back, and then it gives as an argument its functionality. So you can create a customized filter with this filter callback. Boom, that's it. No, that is not over. One last thing that I want to show, it's a library which is called HTML Purifier, which probably people use. Is a library written in PHP that remove malicious code. It's is created by people. You can download it, and probably if your HTML text areas or on large HTML pieces, as you see here. Here is the display, is the demo. I didn't download it. You can see the demo here, that if this is the HTML input that you get, and you can write whatever you want, and this shows us, and this shows you how it will strips and remove malicious code out from from the code you wrote. Some guides that I read says that this HTML purifier works well when you have big inputs like huge text. Then it's better to use something like this. If you have just a form for a name and a password, then you should stick using what we have saw. But maybe I don't know what you do. I don't know. And here there are values that I'm not going to cover. You submit, and thank you. It has removed everything, but this is not the point. Okay. Have a look at this HTML purifier, especially if you are already a owner of a website. Maybe it's useful. If you are just a student and you are starting to learn, maybe this is not really important. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I see you in the next video. Subscribe, like and comment. Thank you very much.